I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I'm gonna keep it brief. Welcome in to the Instant Classic Wrestling Podcast, the only podcast that is always, I mean always, he means always, they mean always, you mean always, she means always, an instant classic.
Danny Dunn! Hi, JKK.
We will see you on the flippity dippity. Oh yeah.
When I came into the preview, I don't think I realized the magnitude of losing Marcus Peters. I just finished watching the Ravens lose to the Raiders in overtime, which is probably going to be another narrative they're going to I'm surprised they haven't created already. I guess that's because overtime has been played in every game. But that one hurt. That one hurt. But it is week one. It's been a while since I've seen a week one loss for the Ravens. But it is week one. But at the same time, it's just like it's frustrating because on one hand, some of it felt like it was technique issues that shouldn't be issues. There wasn't really a whole lot of flags. There was a bad OPI that went in the Ravens' favor. There was a bad defensive PI that went in the Raiders' favor. But, I mean, other than that, it was a pretty clean game from a flags perspective. Darren Waller ate the Ravens secondary up like chicken curry. What else? What else is there to say about this game? I'm just a little frustrated at the point currently because it wasn't like it wasn't a winnable game. Where should we start? Let's start on the offensive end, since I feel like I have a little bit more to talk about defensively than the offensive end. The offensive end wasn't bad. There was times where it felt like it wasn't sharp. There were times where it felt in a way a little bit like last year's offense. It felt like they were a little more creative, which is nice to see. But at the same time, there were also times where it felt like they were kind of running in a circle. You know, they were kind of running on a hamster wheel. The first touchdown that Lamar threw to, I think that was the first one. I think the first one was a run by Tyson Williams, and then Lamar passed that second touchdown to Hollywood Brown. It was a great play, but like it also was a microcosm of the entire game in a way. Lamar running for his life because the right side of the offensive line just weren't blocking well. Alejandro Villanueva, and then I don't know who came in for. I think it was Ben Powers, if I'm not mistaken, came in for Tyree Phillips. Tyree Phillips got hurt in the first quarter. So he came out and he was done for the game. Alejandro Villanueva looked absolutely terrible on the right side. So for all the things that was said about Zeus, Alejandro Villanueva didn't make a good case for replacing him. But at the same time, I still from a optimistic but at the same time realist fans perspective, I still kind of look at this as week one football after you've just lost 5 of your players to injured reserve in the last 2 weeks. I also put this on. I would also have to say I put this on the fact that there are 13 players on IR and 5 of them are starters. If I'm not, and it may be more than that, but I know at least 5 of them are starters, and then you lose Tyree Phillips also in this game. The Raiders, real quick, shouts out to the Raiders for being aggressive, taking chances, never giving up, because they definitely did that in this game. Any new corner and even Marlon Humphrey at the end of the game, they abused them at every point in time. It was almost like, in a way, at times, and Hunter Renfrow had some good plays, but it was like Darren Waller against the world. He caught, he dropped some footballs, but at the same time, when he was catching the football, It was for big gains. It was worth it. They weren't, putting the ball on the ground. The crazy part is, let's just go to the end of this game real quick. The crazy part is it goes to overtime, and it goes to overtime. I'm already stressing at that point. Game goes to overtime. The Raiders get to the 1 yard line, have a false start, and then Derek Carr throws the ball to Willie Snead off of Willie Snead's hand, and hands this a pick. I mean, I'm not even the most like pessimistic fan there is, but I was like, oh goodness, this game is over, isn't it? At that point, because they're at the 1 yard line. I'm like, there's no way they cough it up, right? And then the Ravens get the ball back. They had one or two pretty good plays, and then I can't even remember who it was right off the top of my head, but he blew by. Actually, Tyson Williams picked him up for like a literal second, and then Lamar got blown up from behind and fumbled the football. Like wow. Shout out to Search One. He said, I think the Raiders D wanted it more, change the vibe of the game. I could say that. I feel like the Raiders defense, like even though the Ravens were scoring, the Raiders defense played good all game. Like they were getting after Lamar all game, especially on the right side of the line. The right side of the line was absolutely terrible, and either needs to be addressed or we're going to have to chalk it up to Tyree Phillips / Ben Powers and Alejandro Villanueva haven't played together, so maybe they don't fit together yet. That's the only thing I can really think of, because as of right now, that ain't gonna work. And like, we talk about it all the time, like, oh, Lamar's gonna have to put the team on his back and all this, but like when there's no protection either, it's kind of hard to do that. From a running back perspective, I think they played well. Latavius Murray felt like he was a little sluggish, felt like he was a little slow. I mean, number one, he hadn't played in a while. Number two, he had just got brought in. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting him to come firing off all cylinders. I thought Tyson looked pretty good for the most part. I think the thing about the Ravens offense is explosiveness, and Tyson showed that. He showed that explosiveness, but I don't know. This one was just a frustrating one all around, because it felt like the Ravens had good momentum, and then they kind of lost the lead. And like I was saying, from an offensive perspective, it almost feels like last year, where the Ravens can't pass protect, especially now looking at the right side of the line. The Ravens can't pass protect, and everybody wants the Ravens to open up the offense and throw the ball around the yard and do all this and show that Lamar Jackson can throw the ball. But if he ain't got no time, it don't matter who you put back there, because it ain't gonna work. I mean, some of the best plays we saw of the night was Lamar evading because he had no choice in figuring out a way to get the ball out. And that's the thing that I think for some reason people are forgetting. Like, last year, the offensive line was probably the worst offensive line Lamar Jackson has been behind that we've seen in quite some time. Now, of course, you had Ronnie Stanley, who was out, which definitely hurt. So and there was just new pieces everywhere. Marshall Yonder was gone for the first year of Lamar's career. So it's like, what do you do? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the thing. Like, this one was a frustrating one, but at the same time, like, it's still early in the season, and like, when you lose all of those players, when you lose J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and then you go on the defensive end, you lose L.J. Fort, you lose Marcus Peters, it's gonna take time to get people back in the swing of things. And there was I know for sure there was a rookie corner out there who had to play big snaps tonight, and let's just be honest, he was decent, but when we needed it most, he wasn't ready. When we needed it most, it wasn't Marcus Peters. Marlon played well for 95% of the game, and then until that last play. I felt like Averett played well because they really didn't throw the ball his way, which is usually a good thing for a corner. But for the most part, Averett played well, and I think he was the one that got the pick in overtime to begin with. So, I mean, defensively, it wasn't that it was bad, but honestly, I think, and maybe I felt opposite of this in the preview, but I feel like the I feel like the secondary was worse than the pass rush, right? Last year it was pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, pass rush, right? This year I think it's going to be secondary. I think that's where from a defensive perspective, that's where the issues are going to be. Because when you think about it, when the Ravens have lost any of those top three corners, whether it be Marlon, whether it be Marcus Peters, or whether it be Jimmy Smith, it was always an issue. They're their most coherent together, right? They have the most cohesion as a unit together when it's all three of them, and you add Tavon Young in, and you don't have to put too much pressure on Tavon Young, because if you think about it, when Tavon Young's out there and Jimmy Smith's out there right behind him, it's like, it's one of those things where they can move and shift and manipulate a little bit more. Live and die by the blitz, it's almost killing me at this point. Sometimes, like, I'm just so frustrated in that regard too, because there's sometimes when they blitz when it makes absolutely no sense. And it would be different if you were getting the quarterbacks with the blitz and you were causing them to make error throws, but it's not happening, right? They're still making accurate throws even though they're going against the blitz. So it's that, it's tough. That's a tough one to take, because you had it won at time, points in time in the game. There was a point in time where you settled for a field goal where you probably should have had 7 more points on the board. I think it was 14-10 at the time. It should have been 21-10 instead of 17-10. And I think that particular field goal kept them in the game for the rest of the time, because I think they scored on that next possession, and then it was just kind of pivoting back and forth. From a clutch perspective, it was pretty good. That last possession that the Ravens had in overtime was not good at all. It had some flashes, but then that kind of missed or whiffed block by Williams didn't help, and that may be one of those times where, number one, it's gonna be some growing pains for Tyson Williams, but at the same time, it might be one of those times where you want to put in a guy who's a little bit more of an experienced blocker back there. And like, it's hard to say like, oh, let's put Patrick Ricard back there, because then you're really taking away the threat of, okay, this could be a run play. Everybody and their mama knows it's a pass. So it's one of those situations where they're just going to have to get better. The next man up philosophy never really stops in the NFL, but at the same time, it does take time for the next men that are coming up to mesh together. And that's in the secondary, especially that secondary playing with this kind of with a couple of new pieces on the defensive line or at linebacker or whatever. There's some cohesion issues that are going to have to be fixed. And the offensive line is going to have to play together. I don't know if they need to go to lunch. I don't know if they need to, they're going to have to figure out something, because this was the same issue we had last year. And that's the thing. There were times, and I said this earlier in the video, but there were times where it felt like this was in a way kind of a different team offensively. They did some things that were a little bit different than they usually wouldn't do. We didn't see a lot of wide receiver screens, but I saw one little bubble screen out there with Duvernay. I think it was, and I think they did one with Hollywood too. And then they had the little jet kind of jet sweep type player. I don't know if it was a touch pass or it was a sweep, sweep handoff, but they had that play with Hollywood. That was a unique like play. But then they had flashes of like where the open receivers. They had flashes of like who are we going to put our number one guy on? Okay, if that's going to be Mark Andrews, who I don't know where he was in this game tonight. If that's going to be Mark Andrews, I think he had like three catches, but it just wasn't enough. If it's going to be Mark Andrews, then it's like, okay, who's the next guy? Right? Who's the next guy up? Because I'm gonna be honest with you, but besides a speed threat and not nearly in the way of like a Tyreek Hill, where he's gonna break it every time he could break it every time he gets it, Hollywood is like the next best receiver. But at the same time, like I said, and that's why I expected a little more of like a James Prochet, that at least he's gonna come in and catch the ball. when you need it. He's gonna try to, he's probably gonna get open when you need him. And from what I was hearing in the comments from the stream I was watching some Engraven react to it. It seems like Prochet wasn't getting separation, so that could be another thing. I don't know, but I don't feel like Prochet is, and that could be a blocking issue too, is on the field very much to begin with. When it comes to being a receiver, even in situations where he's obviously going to be a receiver. So that's kind of another issue that I got with the offenses. Sometimes they just look like last year, and some of that is, and Sammy Watkins played phenomenal. I felt like when he got his chances, he played well. Now, when it comes down to the receiver, I think then that helps. I think if Sammy Watkins can be consistent, Sammy Watkins can take eyes off of Hollywood and take eyes off of Duvernay, who I really didn't feel like I saw much of either in a lot of different areas. But he can take some eyes off of them. But I think really the key is going to be when Rashad Bateman comes back. And I think Rashad Bateman is going to be the key to a lot of things. If he can come back and be as lethal as we're hoping as Ravens fans that he can be, then I think, honestly, I think it's going to be a good thing. I think he's going to open up the offense a lot more because you got to think about it. I mean, by the time he comes in, Tyson will be then gotten used to the offense because I think he can't come back until week 4. So Tyson will be and hopefully the Ravens won't be 0-4 by then. But Tyson will be gotten used to the offense a little bit more. It won't be, it won't be so new to him because, Tyson, even though he's been there for 2 years, it's almost like starting a rookie in a way because he hasn't really played real snaps. And we saw some miscommunication from him and Lamar in the game as well. So. I think by that time, by week 4, if Bateman is back, if Bateman and Boykin is back, if they're back by then, I think that'll be good. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to prove, and it could be Sammy Watkins as well, but somebody's got to prove that they can beat corners on the outside. Somebody's got to prove it because once again, we're sitting in the same situation as Ravens fans. We're sitting in the same situation as we were last year. Number 1, Lamar's got to do it all. Number 2, there are no open receivers. There is nobody that I'm going to take my best corner and put him on besides Mark Andrews. And if I can take Mark Andrews out the game like they did a pretty good job of tonight, sorry about you because Hollywood ain't beating me. Sorry about you because Duvernay ain't beating me. Sorry about you because Prochet ain't beating me. And like I said, Sammy Watkins played pretty well. So he, if he can stay healthy, maybe he is that second guy. And I mean, Hollywood played well. That's the thing. Like, I'm not even saying Hollywood didn't play well, but I still don't think Hollywood scares anybody as a receiver yet. That's just my opinion from watching literally every game of his career right now in the NFL. Like, I don't feel like he's scaring anybody I don't think anybody's like, we got to key in on Hollywood when it comes to anything but the deep ball. Right. And the crazy part is as fast as Hollywood is, how many times I could probably count on one hand the amount of times that the deep ball is thrown to him. They didn't throw but 2 or 3 deep balls to begin with tonight. So anyway, that's it for me. I went a little bit longer than I wanted to. Got a little bit more into it, but nonetheless, Baltimore Coach Show returns this week for week 2 predictions. I'm sure everybody, especially Casey with his Raider Raid, will have a lot to say to me. But like I said, I think with the injury issues right now, it's just going to take some time to mesh. Cohesion is going to be a huge thing. Chemistry is going to be a huge thing, especially when it comes to that secondary, because there were some times where that defense looked like they were lost. They played well, but there were also times, once again, we talked about it a lot, but, when you rely on your defense to win you football games, it's okay as long as your defense wins you the game. If your defense don't win you the game, then sorry about you. But nonetheless, definitely hope you guys enjoyed. Baltimore Coach Show returns this week. Be on the lookout for our wrestling fans. Be on the lookout for some wrestling videos as well. Definitely hope you guys enjoyed. This has been another episode of Quick Thoughts, this time about the Ravens. We'll see you guys on the next one.